You've been lied to your whole life. They told you that touching yourself is wrong, shameful, even dangerous, especially after 60. But here's the truth. They never told you self-pleasure, when done consciously and with care, can actually improve your physical health, emotional well-being, and even sexual function as you age. I'm not talking about fantasies or taboos. This is straight from Dr. Mohit Khera, one of the world's leading urologists and men's health experts. According to him, what you do with your own body, especially after retirement, could be the single most important act of self-care you've been ignoring. Because after 60, everything changes. Your testosterone drops, your circulation slows, your nervous system becomes more sensitive to stress, and your emotional need for connection, both physical and psychological, only grows stronger. The problem is, society has made you afraid of your own body. And that fear, it's hurting you far more than you realize. That's why, in this video, we're exposing the 7 powerful secrets older men wish they had known sooner about masturbation, aging, and real masculine health. What you're about to learn could help you stay stronger, more vibrant, and more connected for years to come. But before we begin, hit the subscribe button and turn on notifications if your health matters to you. And let me know you're watching. Type 1 in the comments if this resonates. Type 0 if you're still skeptical. Either way, your voice matters here. If you've been using the same routine for years, same time, same place, same rhythm, same fantasy, your brain has adapted. It's learned to associate arousal and pleasure with that exact pattern, and only that pattern. And the problem is, the brain is a fast learner. Over time, this leads to a dangerous loop. You find that you need more stimulation, more intensity, more pressure, more speed, more novelty, and eventually what used to excite you doesn't work anymore. That's not your age, that's not your hormones, that's conditioning. Plain and simple. See, your nervous system gets wired, literally rewired, to expect a certain type of stimulation. Mechanical, predictable, disconnected. And when you suddenly find yourself in a real-life situation with real touch, real emotion, real unpredictability, your body doesn't know how to respond. That's when the real problems begin. Erectile dysfunction, delayed response, reduced sensitivity, frustration, shame, even avoidance of intimacy. Men begin to pull away from their partners not because they don't care, but because the gap between fantasy and reality feels too wide, too awkward, too much effort. And let's be clear, this isn't about morality. This is about neurobiology. Your brain is designed to respond to what it experiences repeatedly. So if all it gets is fast, thoughtless solo release, that's all it will learn to want. And eventually, even that stops feeling good. Now, here's where it gets even more serious. This constant overstimulation, especially without emotional connection, floods your brain with dopamine in unnatural spikes, which means your baseline drops. You feel less motivated, more tired, more emotionally flat. Add to that the physical wear on the nerves, the pelvic floor, and the circulatory system. And you've got a recipe for long-term dysfunction. But the worst part isn't the physical symptoms, it's the emotional distance. Men start to feel disconnected not just from others, but from themselves, from their own bodies, from their own pleasure, from their own sense of worth. And this isolation can spiral into depression, anxiety, and even hopelessness, especially when no one's talking about it. But here's the good news. This cycle can be reversed. When you stop treating self-pleasure like a mechanical task and start treating it like a form of care, of listening to your body, everything changes. It's not about quitting, it's about retraining, slowing down, bringing awareness, tuning in, because your body isn't broken, it's just waiting for you to reconnect. Here's the shocking truth: avoiding masturbation entirely, especially as you age, can be just as damaging as overdoing it. A lot of men, out of guilt, religious pressure, or misinformation, choose to abstain completely. They believe it's the righteous path. That self-denial equals strength. But what they don't realize is what happens inside their body when sexual release is completely shut down. Let's talk about the prostate. This small gland, roughly the size of a walnut, plays a huge role in your reproductive and urinary health. It produces the fluid that nourishes and protects sperm, and it needs regular movement to stay healthy. Now here's what's dangerous. When a man goes long periods without ejaculation, fluid builds up in the prostate. That stagnation creates pressure, inflammation, and eventually congestion. Think about it like a car engine that never gets used. Over time, the oil thickens, parts seize up, and systems begin to break down. Your body is no different. It was designed for flow, not storage. In fact, researchers at Harvard conducted a long-term study involving over 30,000 men. They found that men who ejaculated at least 21 times a month had a significantly lower risk of developing prostate cancer. That's not a fringe theory, that's science. And it flies in the face of the old myth that abstinence equals health. When you suppress that natural release for weeks, months, or even years, you invite a whole list of problems. Frequent urination at night, pelvic pain, pressure behind the testicles, lower back aches, and over time, a drastically increased risk of prostatitis and even malignancy. But this isn't just about disease, it's about quality of life. Regular ejaculation, whether through partnered intimacy or solo care, keeps the prostate fluid, fresh blood circulation active, and the pelvic muscles engaged. And it's not just physical. Sexual expression is deeply tied to your identity, vitality, and sense of aliveness. Suppressing it out of shame or fear doesn't make you stronger. It makes you shut down. You might feel disconnected from your body, emotionally numb, less motivated, more reactive to stress. And for many men, that internal tension begins to show up in unexpected ways, from irritability and fatigue to chronic tightness in the hips and pelvic floor. Now let's be clear, this doesn't mean you need to hit a quota. It means you need to stay in touch with yourself, literally and emotionally. Instead of turning away from your body, get curious. Learn how it feels. Notice what it needs. Treat your sexual health like you would any other part of your body, with respect, with consistency, and without shame. Because the truth is, your prostate doesn't care if you're religious, married, celibate, or single. It just wants to do its job. And its job requires movement. So if you've been avoiding sexual release altogether, thinking it's the clean or pure way to live, you might be unintentionally harming one of the most vital systems in your body. Instead, reframe it. See it as self-maintenance, as hormonal support, as protection for your long-term well-being. And if you're dealing with guilt or confusion, remember, this is your health we're talking about. Not dogma, not judgment, not taboo. Your body speaks through symptoms. Listen before it starts yelling. Here's something most men don't talk about, but it's quietly shaping their health every single day. Shame. Not the kind you can easily point to, but the kind that's been building in silence since you were a boy. Maybe it started with a parent slapping your hand away, or a teacher using words like dirty or disgusting. Maybe it was religion, or locker room culture, or just that feeling you got the first time you explored your own body, that you were doing something wrong. And now, decades later, you still hesitate, still flinch at the idea of self-touch. Not because it hurts physically, but because it stirs something uncomfortable emotionally. Here's what you need to understand. That shame isn't just a feeling, it's a physiological event. When you reject the urge to connect with yourself, when you push away intimacy with your own body, you activate the brain's threat response. Your cortisol rises. Your oxytocin, the bonding hormone, drops. And over time, this disconnect becomes chronic. You begin to feel anxious without knowing why. You lie awake at night, not realizing your nervous system is stuck in high alert. You get irritated, emotionally numb or depressed, and can't figure out what's missing. The truth is, what's missing is you, your connection to your own body, your ability to feel pleasure without guilt, to touch yourself without judgment, to experience aliveness without shame. This isn't about sex, it's about safety. It's about returning to a sense of inner home. Studies show that men who carry deep-seated shame around sexuality are more likely to suffer from depression, insomnia, immune issues, and even chronic pain conditions. Why? Because when you shut down a core part of your identity, your body doesn't just forget, it fights back. It protests through symptoms, through burnout, through breakdown. Now, here's the good news. Shame is learned, which means it can be unlearned. You don't have to carry those old beliefs forever. You don't have to repeat what your father or your preacher or your culture taught you. You can create a new relationship with your body, one that's grounded in curiosity, not criticism, respect, not repression. Start small. When you're alone, place a hand over your heart or on your stomach. Breathe. Let yourself feel. Not arousal, just presence. Then, over time, begin to explore your body with intention. Not for release, not for distraction, but for connection. To rebuild the bridge between your mind and your skin. To remind yourself that touch is not a sin, it's a need. Just like water, or sunlight, or sleep. Because when you reclaim self-touch without shame, you awaken parts of your nervous system that have been numb for years. You lower stress, improve sleep, strengthen immunity, and rediscover emotional balance. But most importantly, you begin to trust yourself again. So if you've spent years believing that touching your own body is wrong, it's time to ask who taught you that. And were they right? Or were they just passing down their own fear? Your healing begins the moment you choose a different answer. Here's something most men don't talk about, but it's quietly shaping their health every single day. Shame. Not the kind you can easily point to, but the kind that's been building in silence since you were a boy. Maybe it started with a parent slapping your hand away, or a teacher using words like dirty or disgusting. Maybe it was religion, or locker room culture, or just that feeling you got the first time you explored your own body, that you were doing something wrong. And now, decades later, you still hesitate, still flinch at the idea of self-touch. Not because it hurts physically, but because it stirs something uncomfortable emotionally. Here's what you need to understand. That shame isn't just a feeling. It's a physiological event. When you reject the urge to connect with yourself, when you push away intimacy with your own body, you activate the brain's threat response. Your cortisol rises. Your oxytocin, the bonding hormone, drops. And over time, this disconnect becomes chronic. You begin to feel anxious without knowing why. You lie awake at night not realizing your nervous system is stuck in high alert. You get irritated, emotionally numb or depressed, and can't figure out what's missing. The truth is, What's missing is you, your connection to your own body, your ability to feel pleasure without guilt, to touch yourself without judgment, to experience aliveness without shame. This isn't about sex, it's about safety. It's about returning to a sense of inner home. Studies show that men who carry deep-seated shame around sexuality are more likely to suffer from depression, insomnia, immune issues, and even chronic pain conditions. Why? Because when you shut down a core part of your identity, your body doesn't just forget it. Fights back. It protests through symptoms, through burnout, through breakdown. Now, here's the good news. Shame is learned, which means it can be unlearned. You don't have to carry those old beliefs forever. You don't have to repeat what your father or your preacher or your culture taught you. You can create a new relationship with your body, one that's grounded in curiosity, not criticism, respect, not repression. Start small. When you're alone, place a hand over your heart or on your stomach. Breathe. Let yourself feel. Not arousal, just presence. Then over time, begin to explore your body with intention. Not for release, not for distraction, but for connection. To rebuild the bridge between your mind and your skin. To remind yourself that touch is not a sin, it's a need. Just like water, or sunlight, or sleep. Because when you reclaim self-touch without shame, you awaken parts of your nervous system that have been numb for years. You lower stress, improve sleep, strengthen immunity, and rediscover emotional balance. But most importantly, you begin to trust yourself again. So if you've spent years believing that touching your own body is wrong, it's time to ask who taught you that. And were they right? Or were they just passing down their own fear? Your healing begins the moment you choose a different answer. Here's something no one ever told you. Growing up, your erection is more than just a response to arousal. It's a sign of vascular health, of neurological function, of emotional presence. And, like any other system in the body, if you stop using it, it begins to shut down. It's not punishment, it's biology. Your body is built for efficiency. It's designed to preserve energy and only maintain what's needed. So if the signal stops coming, if your brain stops sending blood to the penis regularly, the tissue begins to atrophy. The elasticity fades, the circulation weakens, and slowly, without even realizing it, you lose what was once effortless. Think of it this way. Your penis is like a muscle. No, not technically a muscle, but in how it responds to use. When you stop exercising your arm, it gets stiff, weak, less coordinated, and eventually it can't do what it used to do. Now apply that to your sexual function. If you go months or even years without experiencing an erection, the internal structures that support that function begin to deteriorate. The smooth muscle inside the penis loses tone. The veins become more porous, the nerves get sluggish, and the entire system becomes harder to wake up. But here's the good news, this decline isn't final. It's not irreversible, and you have more control than you've been led to believe. You don't need to be aroused all the time. You don't need to perform like you're 25 again. But you do need to maintain the circuit, send the signal. Keep the blood flowing. Keep the tissue oxygenated. Even if it's just a few gentle erections a week, that alone can keep the system functional. Some men even use morning erections as a health barometer. If they disappear, it's a sign something needs attention, not just physically, but emotionally and hormonally too. Let's talk about the psychological impact for a moment. When men begin to experience weaker erections, it doesn't just affect their body. It affects their identity, their confidence, their connection to self-worth. And the worst part, the shame can cause them to withdraw from intimacy, from partners, and even from their own bodies. But what if we reframed it? What if, instead of seeing it as failure, we saw it as a feedback system? A message from your body saying, I need more attention, more movement, more connection, not punishment, just information. And the solution isn't to pressure yourself into performing. It's to re-engage the system with care and consistency. You can start with non-goal-oriented touch. No pressure to finish. No expectation. Just connection. You can also explore techniques like pelvic floor exercises, also known as Kegels, to strengthen the muscles that support erectile function. Another option: breathwork. Deep rhythmic breathing enhances blood flow and relaxes the nervous system. Two things your erections depend on. And of course, regular cardiovascular movement, walking, swimming, even light cycling helps keep your blood vessels responsive and your heart healthy. Remember, erectile function isn't just about sex. It's about vitality. It reflects your circulation, your nervous system, your mental health, and your hormones. So if you've noticed changes, don't panic. And don't disappear. Instead, re-enter the conversation with your body. Because the truth is, the use it or lose it rule isn't a threat. It's an invitation to stay connected, to stay present, to stay alive. Let's talk honestly, modern porn is not what it used to be. Today, with just a few taps, you can access an endless stream of hyper-stimulating images, videos, and fantasies, content that's faster, more intense, and far more extreme than anything your brain was ever meant to process. And at first it feels exciting, a rush, even liberating. But over time, something starts to shift. You need more variety, more novelty, more shock value just to feel the same level of arousal you used to get from a simple touch. This isn't just about willpower, it's about brain wiring. See, porn activates the brain's reward system, the same system triggered by food, social bonding, and even addictive substances. When used occasionally and mindfully, it might not cause harm. But when it becomes frequent, compulsive, automatic, your brain begins to change. It starts to expect unrealistic levels of stimulation. It floods with dopamine, and then quickly crashes. You may begin to notice that you feel numb during real intimacy, that you can't get aroused without a screen, that your body no longer responds to a real partner, only pixels. This is what's known as porn-induced erectile dysfunction, or PIED. It's becoming more common, especially among men under 40. But older men are not immune. You might find yourself avoiding sex altogether. Not because you've lost desire, but because your body has become conditioned to a completely different kind of stimulus. And the most dangerous part, many men blame themselves. They think, what's wrong with me? Why can't I respond to my wife like I do to the screen? The answer isn't shame, it's science. But here's the empowering truth. Your brain is not broken, it's adaptable. It can rewire. Neuroscience calls this neuroplasticity, your brain's ability to form new pathways, disconnect old ones, and heal itself with time and intention. So what does that look like in real life? It starts by stepping back. Not necessarily forever, but long enough to reset. This is sometimes called a dopamine fast, a period where you stop consuming high-intensity stimulation, including porn, to allow your brain to regain sensitivity. At first, it might feel uncomfortable. You might feel irritable, restless, even empty. But this is just withdrawal. Not from sex, but from the overstimulation your brain has become used to. Then, something beautiful begins to happen. You start to feel again. Small touches become meaningful. Your imagination returns. Real connection starts to feel real again. Some men also find it helpful to replace old habits with new ones, things that bring pleasure without overstimulation. Nature, music, movement, mindfulness, creative expression. All of these help your brain rebuild a healthier reward system. And if this feels overwhelming, you don't have to go it alone. Therapists and support groups trained in sexual health and compulsive behavior can walk with you without judgment. Because remember, this isn't about morality, it's about health, about reclaiming your sensitivity, your presence, and your capacity for deep connection. And you don't have to give up pleasure to do it. In fact, when you reset your brain, pleasure becomes richer, more real, more grounded. So if you've ever felt stuck, trapped in a loop of stimulation and detachment, know this: you can break free, you can take back control, and your brain, your body, your heart, they're all waiting to feel again. Here's something most men don't realize. Your body doesn't just need nutrients. It doesn't just need sleep or movement. It needs connection fizz. But what happens when you start to pull away? Not just from other people, but from yourself. You stop reaching for your partner. You stop enjoying the feel of your own skin. You stop listening to what your body is. And slowly, you begin to disconnect. Now here's the science behind that. Human touch is more than just comfort. It activates oxytocin, the same chemical that lowers blood pressure, reduces stress, boosts the immune system. But when you isolate, when you go days, weeks, or eve oxytocin, and court, your nervous system becomes dysregulated, your immune system. Your body enters a low-grade survival mode. Emotional withdrawal can lead to numbness, to anxiety, to depression, and to a creeping sense that you're no longer fully alive. For many older men, this spiral begins after retirement, or the loss of a partner, or simply from years of shame around self-touch and emotional vulnerability. And it doesn't always look like loneliness. Sometimes it looks like being fine, busy, self-sufficient. But deep down, something is missing, and the body knows. Studies show that people who are deprived of affectionate touch experience higher rates of inflammation, cognitive decline, and even early mortality. It's not about sex, it's about contact. It's about being seen, being felt, being real. And here's the beautiful part: you can start reconnecting today, right where you are. Touch doesn't always have to come from someone else. It can begin with you, taking time each day to gently place your hands on your heart, your belly, your face, not to fix anything, but just to listen, to feel, to say, "I'm here, and I still matter." You can also seek out safe, healthy ways to receive touch from others, like massage dance therapy or shared movement practices. Even placing a hand on someone's shoulder or giving a long, heartfelt hug can reset your nervous system in powerful ways. And if you feel awkward at first, that's okay. You're not broken. You're just out of practice. Like a muscle that hasn't been used in a while, your capacity for connection needs time to wake up. But when it does, something incredible happens. You feel more energy, more joy, more clarity. Your memory sharpens. Your immune system strengthens. Your sense of meaning and motivation returns. You start to remember who you are, not just a man checking boxes, but a living, breathing being who deserves love, pleasure, and deep connection. So if you've been living in isolation, emotionally, physically, or spiritually, this is your invitation, not to force intimacy, but to open gently, one breath at a time, one moment at a time. You don't have to wait for someone else to touch you. You can begin with yourself, with kindness, with presence, with the truth that your body is still worthy and still longing to be felt, held, and honored. Because the greatest danger isn't aging, it's disconnecting from the very things that keep you alive. You've made it to the end. And if you're still here, it means something inside you is ready to change. You're not broken. You're not past your prime. And no, it's not too late. Your body still remembers. Your mind still responds. And your heart still craves connection, not just with others, but with yourself. Every part of you is wired for healing, for strength, for renewal. That's why we shared these 7 powerful secrets, not to shame you, but to remind you of what's possible. So now it's your turn. Start small. 10 quiet minutes a day. No pressure, no goal. Just presence. Touch your skin like it matters. Breathe like you're still alive. Look in the mirror like you still belong. Because you do. If this message spoke to you, if you felt something stir deep within, don't keep it to yourself. Drop a comment below and tell me. Which secret hit you the hardest? Which one will you try first? And if you know a man, a father, a brother, a friend who needs to hear this, share this episode with him. Finally, tap that subscribe button. This isn't the end of the conversation, it's just the beginning. We're here to support you, to speak truth, to break the silence, and to help you come home to your body, your power, and your life one day at a time.